Welcome back to yet another edition of the I Prefer the 80s and 90s Sports Podcast, a podcast or editorial where I, Richard Harris Jr., talk about why I prefer the sports of the 80s and 90s over today. Today's topic is college football. And oh, doctor, this is not Keith Jackson, and we're not watching the barn burner. We're not watching the game right now because there's not much action right now on. Actually, I'm lying. LSU and Ole Miss is lighting up the scoreboard. Duke and Notre Dame's just getting underway. Oregon is about to put the beat down on Stanford after a slow first half. And I'm going to tell you something that I think you all know. Do you notice that every team in college football runs the same offense? Every team except for the military academies run the same offense, and all the military academies run the same offense. They run the option. They stay stuck in the 40s. Because they don't expect to win national championships. So they're like, you know what? This is a tradition. This is the tradition of the Navy, the Army, the Air Force. We're going to run the triple option. Either the triple or the wing T option. But everybody across this country runs the same single back, shotgun formation quarterback plays. Spread them out, 5 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers and a running back, 3, 1, and 1. And it's hilarious because they throw around words. I'm going to use that word again that you all love, GOATs in college football. They say Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach in the history of college football, because he's got 7 national championships, and no one's got more than that. And then you look around the SEC, and even old St. Nick had to evolve into today's way of playing the game, because Nick used to run it NFL style. Nick had a quarterback, a fullback, and a halfback behind him, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and said, let's dance. But even he came around. Now, where did this all start? We know about the run and shoot that happened in the 80s. The Houston Cougars had a quarterback by the name of Andre Ware, and Andre Ware lit up the college football world with his arm and Houston's dynamic offense. And essentially, they lit people up like Christmas trees to the tunes of, they scored 95 points in one game. I guess SMU, I believe, and they could have scored 100, but they called off the Dogs. And then after he graduated and after he won the Heisman, there was another quarterback named David Klingler. And Klingler did the same thing. He slung that ball around all over the place. And somewhere down the line, coaches broke that down to a better system. Because the one bad thing about that offense, as was witnessed in 1996, I think it was, Sugar Bowl or Fiesta Bowl or Orange Bowl, I think it was the Orange Bowl, when Florida played Nebraska. And they beat the snot out of poor Danny Werfel. They sacked him so many times that it was almost as if like Nebraska knew the plays were coming, and they just came in there and beat him down. I mean, it was ugly. And that was a funny thing, and what I loved about the 80s and 90s. What I loved about the 80s and 90s that I don't like about today is that in the 80s and 90s, you would get a game where Nebraska would play Miami. Nebraska was holding on to the traditional wishbone, not conforming to what was happening across college football, and Miami ran a pro style offense. So it was a battle of styles. Both played aggressive defenses, but it was a battle of two distinct styles. And Miami used to crush them. Oklahoma played Miami. Miami played that pro style. And Oklahoma played the old school wishbone, single back, fullback. And Miami just ate that up for lunch. But very few teams could play that style because you had to have the fast running back. You had to have a quarterback that was really crafty with the ball. And you had to have a fullback who was willing to take that hit. And then as I go through the Rolodex in my mind, there was good matchups in the 80s that played opposite styles until the pro style teams all of a sudden just started taking over. Penn State started winning. Of course, Miami was winning. And then Florida State started winning. But Florida State took a page out of the Florida textbook from Steve Spurrier where they did the single back thing. Notre Dame played a combination of both styles. They played the old school style, T formation, wishbone sometimes, option sometimes, and they played the pro style. But then other schools started getting more creative, quarterbacks who could throw it and had great hands. Colorado had Darian Hagan, and Colorado started to do well. Then they got Cordell Stewart, who could throw it and run it. And then all of a sudden, all across the country, slowly but surely, everybody started using the quarterbacks, using the black quarterback in particular, from around the country, particularly from Florida, who could run that style of offense. And it's funny because there was only one white quarterback that wasn't in the service academies that did it very well. Of course, that was Eric Crouch and Scott Frost, so that's two. But that was the old Nebraska system. And you'd sit there and you say to yourself, why is this system still working when teams are now on it? And so teams said, okay, let's get even smarter. Let's bring in the white quarterback who could throw it and run it. Thus beginning Tim Tebow. Thus beginning the kids that went to Kansas State. Alex Smith from Utah could run and throw before all the leg trouble that he suffered. But there was variety. Every team didn't do the same thing. Every team today does the same thing. Of the 120-something teams in college football, I'm willing to wager, you take out the service academies, you take out this year's Notre Dame because Sam Hartman doesn't run. Miami's quarterback, he don't run that much either. But every team across the country has a running quarterback who can run it and a quarterback who can throw it. And they all run the same plays, just different times. And that's what shocks me when I see blowouts, because it's like every team knows what every team is going to run. It's just a question of, can you stop it? Watching USC. USC for years did not want to go to that style of offense until they brought in this new coach who runs that style of offense. And it's now permeating into the NFL. Shotgun offense. The Dallas Cowboys were the first team to really use the shotgun offense in the NFL. But they only used the shotgun for third down so that the quarterback had more time to throw. I don't think that's the philosophy in today's game because everything is run out of the shotgun. Every Saturday and Sunday, I have a sock and I throw it at my TV when it's 4th down and 1 and the team decides they're going to try and run the ball from shotgun formation with no protection from a fullback. And they fail. And they get stuffed in the backfield. Every week. It happens at least 7-8 times. And both on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, 7-8 times on Sunday might be an exaggeration. But every week, it's 4th down and 1. Some team says, we're not going to put a fullback here. We're going to go with the shotgun. And either my quarterback's going to get it with his athleticism or a running back's going to get it with his athleticism. And it does work sometimes. It doesn't work all the time. But as I watch all the games and I try to figure out who's better or who's good or who's not good or why this works, I come to the same conclusion every week. This is how you succeed in college football. You need a quarterback that can run, and you need one wide receiver that a quarterback honestly, truthfully believes will catch anything that he throws to him. There are no women, so I can't say he or her. Only thing you need is a receiver who will catch the ball. I've watched 3 games today. All 3 games. Georgia was in trouble. All of a sudden, the quarterback from Georgia, who's new, found that this kid Bowers, who's the best tight end in the country last year, first-team All-American this year, first-team All-American last year, found them in the second half 7 times, 100-plus yards. They win. Colorado game. USC was killing Colorado. It was a mercy beating. And then Colorado discovered this freshman. Dion, I guess, went in the locker room and said, I need 11 guys on both sides of the ball who's going to play hard. And I'm going to try out some new people. So he found this number 14 kid. He catches like 10 balls for over 100 yards, 176 yards. They don't win, but he's discovered himself a new weapon. Missouri is playing Vanderbilt. Missouri's got a receiver. He catches 11 balls. They win. That's all you need. One guy who can catch the ball, quarterback who can move, sleight of hand, and go. And you watch every game. They all line up the same. It's astonishing to me that defense hasn't figured out, and it's hard to figure out, how do you stop 4 guys who are 4-3, 4-4 runners from catching the ball? There's only one way to stop them, and that's get a pass rush. And if you can't get there with 4, you bring 5 or 6. And if you don't get there with 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, somebody's going to be wide open. And someone's going to score. So I don't see where the genius is. I don't see how that you call. Now, Nick Saban gets called the GOAT because he figures out defenses that come up to beat. He's had to defend against this style of offense for years. And now Georgia's coach, Kirby Smart, is going for his 3rd straight championship, has figured out defense to stop all that. I think he's gone and found the Nebraska tapes and figured out how Nebraska dismantled Florida, beat up Peyton Manning. Because they got pressure before the quarterback put his foot down. And that's the only way you stop it. Your front 4 has to be better than their blocking 5, their blocking 6. And in a lot of teams, that's possible because the outside guys are fast, so they get one-on-one, and the inside guys need 2 guys to block them. But to me, college football is losing it because there's no variety. There's no, when you watch Miami win in 2000, for example, they absolutely carved up Nebraska. Dorsey was unbelievable. And then when Miami and Ohio State played the next year, that game got turned because McGahee got his knee broken that game, and Miami wasn't the same team, and the referee made a bad call on pass interference that wasn't pass interference, or Miami would have repeated as champions with 1 second on the clock. That's a joke. But Ohio State ran that single back offense, but Miami had athletes. Miami had a front 4. Miami's always had a front 4 of guys that could beat your guy in front of them. That's what the strength of Georgia is. That's been the strength of Alabama for the last decade, that they've had 4 defensive linemen who can beat the people in front of them. But it doesn't matter. The beauty of being on the West Coast is we get football, baseball from 10 a.m. in the morning until 10 p.m. at night. And when I used to do club security, I could watch sports all day and I go work at the club at 10 o'clock. Or go work at the club at 9 o'clock because some games are in early. And with this new time schedule where games are starting earlier in baseball, I can make the game. I can make work on time. But this new college football system that everybody's running, the games are a little bit faster because now they've taken the clock keeps running now. There's no more stopping the clock except for the last 2 minutes of the game for first downs. And so with that passing style of offense, if there's incompletions, the games might be slow. But if not incompletions, the games aren't slow. I've been on a roll this week. I don't think I've ever talked this much about sports in my life. Every show I've done this week has been over 20 minutes. Because not only do I have passions for the things I talk about, but because they're things that are worth talking about. College football games in the 80s and 90s were better because it was styles. It's like boxing. Styles make fights. Well, today everyone plays the same style. And it comes down to who can stop who. Who has created a play that no one has ever seen. I was watching the Oregon State game against Utah last night, and the announcer said, "That is a Lincoln Riley play from Oklahoma." And I started to laugh. I'm like, yeah, because USC runs that play. Lane Kiffin runs a specific play all the time where it's a play action, I formation play, and it's a deep shot, deep post that goes for touchdowns every time a team runs it. USC used to run it all the time. Alabama started running it when Lane Kiffin coached Alabama. They do it in the NFL. The Chargers run that play. To say there's a copycat league, no, it's a copycat nation. And so as we go into the fall and the matchups are going to start getting tougher, more competitive, athlete on athlete, you're going to see exactly what I mean. And you're going to see that it's going to come down to who has special play, who has the trick play, and who runs the variations better off the same formation.